Namaste. Good day, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm doing a joint live with Paul today, and I'm sure it's going to be another great live packed with information. So, namaste. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Before my guest gets here, I think I'm just going to read the general energy of what's going on right now. This is solely my predictions because my sessions are getting more and more these days, and I'm feeling that there is a cloud over us and we are feeling more uncertainty and unclarity. So it's very important to be more aware and also realize that there is this bubble that we're kind of don't know what's right and what's wrong, what's the next step to take, what's going on. Everything is kind of surprising, and so we need to be more discriminating, not allowing different energies to be around us. Be very discriminating towards even your parents. Sometimes our closest family members, mother, father, brothers, sisters, are the ones that are actually kind of don't want to call the energy vampires, but somehow that's the effect they have with us or on us. Kind of like our energies are not matching one another. So for that, just asking you guys to be more aware. Just shut down the social media as much as you can and try to be more centered. So, because what I'm seeing lately, what's going on, the general energy is like when we're really sure that something is the fact, soon we realize that it wasn't that, and the situation turned totally the other way around. Have you guys experienced that lately? Yeah, so basically that's what it is. That's why I'm asking everyone to be more discerning. Okay, I'm trying to get my guest, but somehow my phone is not allowing me. Paul, would you please be kind enough and send me a request? There we go. Yes. So you see what I'm saying, guys? We need to be more centered more than ever, realizing. Good day, Paul.
Hi. Hello.
How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Sudi. Pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you too. Same here. It's a pleasure to have you. So, would you please be kind enough and introduce yourself to my followers? Who is Paul and what's his mission and what leads him to this path?
Well, I'm a long-time humanitarian. At the age of 19, I became a monk, a celibate monk. And for the next 14 years, I practice very strict spiritual life. And during that time of being a monk, my first service as a monk was doing community service, feeding people in need in Sydney, Australia. I eventually developed that project into something much bigger. I left Australia, went to the United States and established what we call now Food for Life Global, which is the headquarters for an international network of 260 projects in 60 countries. And our volunteers are serving between 1 and 2 million meals every single day. And they're all freshly cooked vegan meals. So that's my humanitarian journey. And along the way, I've also written many books, and I'm a numerologist, and a social entrepreneur as well.
Beautiful. So what city are you in now?
I'm actually in the Andes Mountains in Colombia. We're about 1 hour north of Bogota. We're 10,000 feet above sea level. And my wife runs an animal sanctuary. So my charity is feeding people in need around the world. And her sanctuary in Colombia is helping rescued animals. So we make a dynamic duo.
Beautiful. What a perfect match. Great. So can you tell us, this is amazing that you started to get on this path when you were at age 19. When I know, I'm aware that the new generations are really like light worker and enlightened beings. And then I'm hearing this from you that you started at such an early age. How were your parents? How was your upbringing? Did that have anything to do with you leading
Um,
this path?
in a way, yes, because they were pretty much everything opposite to the path that I went down. uh,
Okay, tell us how.
well, they were just regular, regular Australian family growing up in the suburbs of Sydney. um, no real spiritual values, just trying to make ends meet, and classic Australian family. But I was very contemplative, even from a very young age. I was very happy sitting in my room, just drawing pictures and thinking. And my mother said that I was the best kid that she ever had because I was just so quiet. It was too easy to look after. And then when I was 15, I became fascinated by astronomy. So I became an amateur astronomer, and that planted a seed in my heart to ask the big questions about life. What is this all about? Why are we here? Why are we so small? The universe is so big. There must be something behind this. So I didn't have the answers at that time. I was only 15, but I was very passionate about astronomy, wanting to learn as much as I could. And in fact, at the age of 16, I told my teacher, when she asked me what I want to do with my life, I says, I want to be an astronomer. And she said very discouragingly, oh, that's stupid. There's only about 4 astronomers in Australia. Why are you wasting your time? So yeah, that was sort of the environment I grew up in, very discouraging, very materialistic. And I got out of that at the age of 19. I just got out of that town, went to the mountains, practiced meditation and yoga, and eventually took up the life of a monk for the next 14 years and just really focused on my spiritual development and and trying to get the answers to those questions, the big questions of life, which most people wait until it's too late. They wait until the end of their life when they start asking those questions, and they should have asked them very early on. And you've made a good point, and that is the younger generation that's coming up. They're a little bit more in tune with the importance of these questions, and they're starting to ask them at a very young age, which is really critical for your success, for your overall happiness, not just your physical happiness, but your mental and spiritual happiness.
Mm. Yeah, can you guide us a little bit about, maybe some of my followers are not really familiar by who are the monks and what is the teaching, and take us a little bit into that.
So I joined a sect of, or like a category of Hinduism called Vaishnavism, which is very similar to Christianity in the sense that it's monotheistic. So we believe in a one supreme God and goddess, and there are many angels. In the Hindu tradition, they call it demigods. But we understood that God is a person. He's not he is, actually, it's interesting, in this particular tradition, we believe in the oneness and difference of God. There's this truth called, in the Sanskrit word, it's achincha, abeda, beda tattva. And it means, achincha means inconceivable, and beta means truth. And it's like God is inconceivably one and different. He is a person, and he's also everything. And the example given in that context is like the sun shine and the sun globe. They're simultaneously one, but at the same time, they're separate phenomena. That you have the sunshine coming in my room right now, and I'm enjoying the sunlight, but then you have the sun globe, but they're they're connected, intimately connected, but they're at the same time they're different. In the same way, God is a person, and God is also everywhere through the expansion of his energies. So that this is a monotheistic tradition within the Hinduism tradition, and I followed that very carefully. It talked a lot about reincarnation. It gave me answers about, life after death. It gave me answers about the eternality of the soul, that we're not simply just a physical form, that we are the soul, which is a higher spiritual energy animating this physical form. And the soul is evolving, the body doesn't evolve. So this idea that there's evolution of species, it's nonsense. There's no evolution of species or evolution of form. There's only evolution of consciousness. And based on the consciousness that we have and the karma that we bring with that, we are given a specific physical form to facilitate that status that we're at that particular time. And we're constantly moving. We're constantly moving through space, changing form, evolving, learning, having experiences. And it's an ongoing process until we get to the point where we're completely pure and we're ready to return back to that spiritual vibration, that spiritual frequency, the spiritual world.
So did you go to a center, a specific center, and how long did you walk us a little bit through that? And what is the practice? Like when we say, I'm a monk, like what is the lifestyle?
Well, yeah, I joined what's called an ashram, which is a little temple in the mountains of about 2 hours out of Sydney. And there were about 20 monks at that time. And we lived a very strict lifestyle. I mean, I never slept on a bed. I slept on the floor in a sleeping bag. I never had a pillow. I used my hands as a pillow. We only ate a vegetarian diet, and it was regulated. So breakfast was at a certain time, lunch was at a certain time, dinner was at a certain time, and there was no snacking in between. Every day we would get up between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, and we would do morning prayers for about 45 minutes. And then we would do personal meditation for 2 hours, which would be chanting the holy names of God. And this is very similar in the Christian tradition, and actually many traditions where God's name is considered to be holy. The sound of God's name is non-different from God the person. So we would meditate on God and try to connect with God through the sound vibration. And even in the ancient Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word. So all of creation is based on sound. So God's holy name is the most powerful way to connect with God in this physical domain. It's like we can create a portal. It's like a key to connecting to the spiritual domain through the sound vibration of God's name. So we would chant or pray for 2 hours non-stop. And then we would we'd have morning class for about an hour. Someone would give a lecture on the ancient scriptures. And then there'd be breakfast. And then throughout the day, we would do our various services, either working on the farm or doing food relief in the community, doing some sort of community service, or working in the temple, cleaning the temple or so on. And then in the nighttime, we would again congregate and do more chanting and singing and dancing. So there's a lot of festivity involved in this lifestyle, a lot of study, a lot of contemplation, and a lot of austerity. But we enjoyed it. I sometimes liken it to as being a spiritual marine. It was very strict. You had to be tough to get through it all. You had to be strong. You learn to control the mind and the senses. You learn to really focus and be determined. But the ultimate goal was not physical prowess. It was spiritual prowess. It was becoming a better version of you, like getting in touch with your higher self, who you really are, as a spiritual person, qualitatively equal to God, but quantitatively small.
I overheard you saying to control the mind. How do you do that? Because I'm really trying to teach this to others, but what is the process that you have used or the monks use?
Yeah, so this is a question that was posed to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the earliest scriptures of India, and it's literally the instructions of Krishna, Lord Krishna, to his friend Arjuna, who was a warrior. And Arjuna says, Krishna, the mind is so difficult to control. It's like trying to control the wind. I mean, how can you control the wind? It's very erratic, right? So Krishna says it's possible with practice and determination. And there are certain things you can do. One of those things is regulation. So regulating the senses, because the mind's like the king of the senses, like the king. So if you regulate the senses, you can start to control the mind. Like you regulate the citizens, control the citizens, you can start to control it. The citizens have the power. Like when we talk about the 1%, the 99%, and people think, oh, we don't have any power. Actually, we do have power. The population, the people do have power. They just have to harness that power. And through that, harnessing that power, they can control the government, the leaders of the world. So in the same way, by controlling and regulating the senses, we can learn to control the mind, make the mind our best friend rather than our worst enemy. Because the mind can be either. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. It's up to you. The other thing to understand is that you are not the mind. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make when they start to go down this path. They tend to think that the mind is them or it represents them, and it doesn't. It's a separate entity. It's a separate energetic force. It is a tool that we use to navigate this material world. It is a tool that we use to solve problems. So you have three things here. You have the intelligence, the mind, and the physical form. So the physical form is simply animated by the soul. So the soul is actually higher than that. But the intelligence, the mind is coming up with ideas. It's coming up with solutions. The intelligence is analyzing those solutions, and they're deciding if it's good or bad. It's sort of like a computer, with ones and zeros. It's saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. But the mind is actually coming up with the solutions. And while this is all going on, the soul is simply witnessing this. The soul, the real you inside, is witnessing this conversation going on. And you can experience this in a very practical way. If you were to stand on the edge of a building, right, and you're looking down and you're seeing, the beautiful vistas around, your mind may come up with the idea, oh, I wonder what it would be like to jump. I wonder what it would be like to be a bird and fly and just be able to jump off the building and fly. That's the mind. The intelligence will immediately kick in and say, that's crazy because you're not a bird. And if you jump off the building, you'll get hurt or kill yourself. And so there's a conversation going on between the mind and the intelligence. This is how we can understand the difference. But who is witnessing that conversation? That's the soul. There's a soul witnessing this conversation. And so once you understand the difference between these different phenomena, you can learn to control them. So the mind is not you. The mind is a force that we use, or a tool that we use to navigate through this material world.
Very nice. Okay. So basically, correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm teaching everyone, or what I'm living by, is from the moment that I notice this I or ego wakes up, I am aware of this other. I separate this I or the mind or whoever is realizing that last night it was dreaming, it was a dream world, and then now this entity realizes that it's leaving one dream world and is moving into another reality, or which is another dream. So by noticing and being aware of this character, I'm constantly aware that whatever this character is thinking is not mine, and whatever emotions this character is going through, it's not mine. Even the body, the physical body, is not mine. So I always say, because I love egos, I always say, imagine yourself, your true self or the soul, as this ego who's sitting up there and observing this character outside itself, and is just looking at this character. I think we're on the same page. Are we saying the same thing?
We are. It's very similar, and it's sort of like another example. guide or try to provide people is that when you're looking at someone, understand that there's a soul within looking through those eyes. And in the same way, when you're looking at someone, your soul, the real you inside, is looking through those eyes. That is not you. So when you communicate with someone, try to look deeply into their eyes, past their eyes to the actual consciousness, you know, the seat of consciousness, the soul, and communicate with them on that level. And even if you speak the most simplest words, it will have a profound impact on their consciousness, because they'll feel like you're touching them at a different level. So we have to understand the difference. It's true. And then when you talk about ego, we also have to understand that there's two types of ego. There is a real ego, which is the real you inside, the real eternal spiritual being, which is hidden right now, which is covered over by material layers. It is covered over by material conditioning. And then there's the false ego, where we identify with the physical form. We think that I'm Paul Rodney Turner, you know, I'm Sudi, I'm Jimmy, I'm Billy, I'm Jane. And that's simply false. That's not the real you. That's a temporary, it's a temporary portal that the soul is able to express itself at that particular time and place. Mm-hmm. But you have an identity which is eternal. You've had many forms in the past. And this is where karma comes into it, because when we tend to judge people based on who they are right now at this particular moment, and we don't know their history. And I give you a very simple example. Like when you're in traffic and you're going through, it's a very heavy traffic and you're changing lanes, and you get upset when someone jumps in front of you, right? And you curse them and you get all angry and you beep the horn. And you make all these judgments about that person. Oh, that person's like this, like that. And you have no idea about who they really are. You have no idea that they could be the most charitable, kind person. There's so many qualities are there, but you have no idea to. You're making a judgment call on an incident which literally transpired for like 5 seconds. And in the same way, we make this judgment call on someone's current persona, which is really like one page in a book or one frame in a movie of who that really that person is. So we have to step back. You're right about that. We have to step back and always see the big picture. And the more we can do that, the more we can get in touch with, the higher reality, so to speak.
Mm. Or in another way, the way I'm saying the same thing, but I'm using it metaphorically. I said, when you're that eagle and you're all the way up there, you're not only involved with this, your lens is not centered on this eye or on this character, but your lens is much more open, is wide, and you can see the whole earth plane, and you can see that every second how many people are suffering from illness, or how many people are like in the hospital hoping to survive, or how many people are taking their last breath at this moment. So when you're that eagle with the open wide lens, this character's issue right now, it becomes so small, and it's just, and then you have love and compassion for everyone, for the whole humanity. And your lens is not on you anymore. You're totally separate from this I or this character. And it just changes everything. Like the way we view, as you said, if somebody is cutting you off in a traffic jam, you're not going to be so judgmental, and you're going to think like, well, I don't know what this person is going through. Maybe there is an accident. Maybe he's facing an emergency that he needs to be rushing to someone or something. So, yeah, I hear that. But going back to earlier, what you said about, you were talking about the emotion. Can you open that up a little bit more for us? Like how the emotion can quiet down the mind or affecting it. And I give you an example. Sometimes I say, like, start touching your finger and bring your whole attention to this. And then the background noise, the the truck is passing by right now. Can you open that a little bit more?
Yeah. So just to touch on the earlier point you made, so it's true that we have to step back. We have to, we have to get in touch with that high ego. But at the same time, we have to also understand that we're very, very conditioned to think about the false ego as ourself. So in many ways, it's a bit of an intellectual exercise where we're sort of pretending, right? And that's why it's so important to do certain practices to break free of that conditioning. And one of those practices, first of all, is detachment, learning detachment. Austerity breeds determination. So when you perform certain austerities, you learn to become more determined. You purify your senses, you purify the mind. The chanting of the holy name of God, whether that's a holy name of Christ or Krishna or Allah or whatever, the sound vibration will also cleanse the mind and also to help you to release from that false ego. Practicing certain, regulating your sleeping, regulating your exercise, watching the food that you eat, because food has a very powerful impact on your consciousness and your mind as well. So what you eat does impact your consciousness and your mind, your mental behavior. So all of these things have to be attended to if you want to be successful in actually getting in touch with that higher self, that real self, not the false ego. So that's the first thing. And then in terms of emotions and managing our emotions, again, it's just about always reminding ourselves. It's a constant process of reminding ourselves of our true reality, who we really are in essence. And the only way to do that is to reinforce that information through study, through spiritual study. And this is exactly where the intelligence comes in, because the intelligence is able to, if you sharpen your intelligence, you're able to control, you're able to dictate to the mind, to educate the mind, so to speak. Because the mind's crazy. It's like a mischievous child. It's like a puppy dog jumping up on your leg, and it's crazy. And the only way to discipline the puppy is through educating it, training it, and so on. In the same way, we need to train the mind, eventually make the mind our best friend. And when you get to the point where it is your best friend, then it starts to, rather than trying to distract you and pull you away into this material world, it will start to help you move towards the spiritual dimension and encourage you and give you a different perspective, whereby instead of coming up with solutions for material success, it will come up with solutions for spiritual success. It becomes your friend, and that takes practice. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It can take many years.
So how do we kind of get the mind, which I call the thinking machine, to be on our side versus going the other side and create chaoses all the time? What is the practice? Like I want to know if we can.
Yeah, so you have, as I said before, you have to purify the senses. You have to, because it's the senses, that's where the control is. If you purify the senses, the mind will eventually come into alignment with you. It'll start to surrender to you, to your spiritual will. You have to control the senses. So we have 5 senses. We have 5 senses, which are essential experiences that we have: eating, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on. All of these senses have to be controlled and regulated. So we have to regulate the tongue, for example. And this is one of the most important lessons which I learned from my spiritual teacher. He said that spiritual life begins when we control the tongue. I later on rephrased that to evolution of consciousness begins when we master the tongue. So the tongue has 2 functions, tasting and vibrating. So what you speak will have a tremendous impact on the way you perceive the world and your consciousness, right? The words that you speak. If you're speaking words that are positive, truthful, uplifting, they're going to not only uplift and encourage other people, they're going to uplift and purify the consciousness within you. Similarly, the food that you eat, what you taste, that will have an impact on your consciousness. If you're eating foods which are decomposed, rotten, dead flesh, and things that have come with negative energy, that come with anger and suffering and pain and sadness, then that will impact your consciousness. That will affect your mind. It will contaminate your mind and bring your consciousness down. So mastering the tongue is a key ingredient of success in spiritual life. And similarly, all the other senses. We need to learn how to control this, engage the senses in spiritual service. So what you see, you know, monitoring and managing what you see, you know, like don't just watch crazy things. Like don't just flick through the Netflix and just watch anything. Watch things which are going to actually be beneficial on a spiritual level. So all of the senses have to be engaged in absorbing positive energy, uplifting energy, which ultimately will cultivate your spiritual awareness. So it's all about controlling and managing the senses, making the senses, bringing the senses under your control, regulating them, and then eventually the mind will start to submit, start to surrender to your spiritual will and become your friend. It's as simple as that. It's possible for anyone. You don't have to be a monk to do that. Anyone can do it.
Exactly. Now, I have another question for you. I've been studying for the past couple of months about parasites and how they not only affect the microbiome in our guts, but how they can be underlying causes of so many illnesses. How do you look at parasites?
Well, we have to see, again, take a step back and understand the big picture that we live in an interdependent world. Every single living thing, every germ, every bacteria, every weed, every plant, fruit, animal has a service to perform for the entire ecosystem. Nothing is useless. Everything has a purpose, right? So in the same way, we live in our body, we have it's a micro universe of the bigger universe, of the macro universe. So we are the soul. We are literally like the host of the apartment complex, right? So we're managing the rules of this, this apartment complex. And in this apartment complex, there are billions and billions of other living entities living in this ecosystem we call the body, right? And they're all performing their service. They're all doing their part to make this system work. But you are the conductor. You are the soul. So if you leave that body, if you decide to leave that building, in the case of like when you die, then eventually that apartment, that system will break down because there's no leader, there's no controller, there's no management in place. So we have to see that this body is, we're made up of billions of other living entities which make up what we call a body. And the most important of all of those are the bacteria which is in our stomach, the flora, because not only do they enable us to nourish the body effectively and keep the systems working, but they also carry with them an influence on our consciousness. And this has also been proven in scientific research, that the quality of your gut flora will actually impact your mental condition, will actually impact the way you see the world, the way you think, the way you behave. It's not just simply about the external influences that you have, maybe the friends that you have or your parenting or whatever. The actual gut flora is a big factor in determining how you perceive the world, how you behave, and how you think. So it's so important for us that's why getting back to the importance of controlling the tongue, managing what you eat, because the food that you put in your body will have an effect on your consciousness as well, not just your physical, your health, but your mental health, and ultimately your spiritual health. So we have to eat right, eat healthy, eat as many live foods as possible, so we get probiotics in the system, and these probiotics is what you want. That's the good stuff. It's in a simple way to understand this is the difference between an unhealthy person and a healthy person, or a person that is mentally disturbed and struggling, to someone that's very optimistic and happy, is the quantity of good bacteria compared to bad bacteria. If you have more good bacteria, you're going to be in a better state of mind and you're going to be physically healthy. and therefore have a better environment to cultivate spirituality.
So I was telling them that this parasite somehow can hijack our brain, the food that we're craving, and the our emotional, because as you know, um, our guts is hosting more than trillions of bacteria and parasites and all of this stuff. And 80% of serotonin and dopamine, these are the happy mood feelings, are in the guts. And these parasites and they can kind of hijack this release of serotonin and dopamine and all these good feelings. So how
Yeah.
can we avoid, like you're into this food business and server, so how are you washing or cleansing or being careful for the vegetables not to be contaminated and all that?
Right. So that's one of the very special aspects of what makes our charity very different, and we believe better than other food relief charities. And that is that, first of all, we are a plant-based charity. We only serve plant-based meals, vegan meals. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, but all the meals are freshly prepared. So none of the food we serve is prepackaged, frozen, or donated food from the supermarket. It's all freshly prepared that morning, washed and cut and prepared and served directly to the public. Another important aspect is that none of our chefs will taste the food while they're preparing it. And why this is so is because we believe in what's called intuitive cooking. So again, we take the senses out of the equation. We master the senses. So rather than allowing the senses to be involved in this process, wherein, typically a chef will like put a spoon in and taste the food to see if there's enough salt. We don't do any of that. We use our intuition because we don't want to invest any negative energy in this food. This food is being prepared for the benefit and pleasure of others. It's not our food. And it would be like, for example, if I bought a box of chocolates for you, but before I gave it to you, I took one of the chocolates because I just want to test, what the chocolate tastes like just before I give it to you. It's not the same anymore. That gift is now contaminated. That gift is not pure anymore. So you imagine if I did that, how bad you would feel about that. You wouldn't feel happy at all. You would be very displeased. You would feel like that was sort of cheating. It doesn't have the same pure quality as if I just gave you the chocolates out of love because I appreciate you, I respect you, I love you, like that. So in the same way, when we prepare the meals, any of our cooks, they never taste the food, they just prepare it. Once it's finished, they take a portion of the food and they put it on a special plate, and then they say a prayer, and they offer this food to God to bless the food, to give it like a high energy, and then only do they serve that to the public. So it's very unique. And on top of that, we do the biggest volume. So we take the time to add that real high quality vibration to the food, and at the same time we do massive volume. So we're talking 1 to 2 million meals every single day at that level, which is quite extraordinary. So when people get that food, then we're not just nourishing their body, we're nourishing their mind and soul as well. So it's complete charity. It's complete
So it's a
holistic.
high vibrational food.
Yeah, it's complete. It's very holistic. It's not simply just something to fill a belly. It's something which will impact them on a spiritual and mental level, which will start to shift their consciousness and make them a better person and help them to be more successful in life. Not just about filling bellies.
Very nice. So tell us, Paul, how did that idea come for you to start this route, to feed people?
Well, when I became a monk in 1983, this was part of the community outreach of the temple that I joined, the ashram that I joined. So they were feeding people in Sydney, right? So that was already part of their spiritual culture. And it dates back to the roots of India's hospitality culture, and wherein they had this inherent, you know, understanding that everyone is spiritual, like a spiritual, we're all spiritual family. And that's why, you know, dogs and cats and cows and like everyone is a spiritual being. And it just, this particular time and place, we have a certain form and we're evolving through, you know, our consciousness is evolving. So in order to show that, the way that they showed that they expressed that understanding was through the sharing of food. So if you go to any temple in India, it's part of the policy of the temple that all guests that come to the temple get free food. It's just, that's what happens. And similarly, in the traditional families, you know, going back a bit of time, it's a little different now. India's become a little bit more materialistic. But going back a few decades or maybe a century, it was very common if a guest came to your house, you would feed them. Even if they were unannounced or unexpected. Someone just knocked on your door, unexpected, you would provide them a meal. And this concept is called Atithi Narayan. So Atithi, it's a Sanskrit word, and Atithi means unscheduled or unannounced. And Narayan is one of the many names of God. God has unlimited names. So it means that the unannounced guest, the unexpected guest who comes to your house, you have to treat them like God. So that was part of the, you know, the community outreach of the temple. So I immediately resonated with that. I really liked that idea. In fact, before I joined the temple, I had this idea that I wanted to be a cook for God. I wanted to be a chef for God. So I was, you know, God reciprocated, and that's literally what happened with me. I learned how to cook large quantities of food. And then eventually I helped to develop that project into a more formal charity. And after 10 years, I left Australia and then set up an international headquarters. And I wrote a training manual, and I began traveling around the world and teaching other people how to start their program. And the rest is history. So now we have 260 projects in 60 countries.
So how could we help for your project to get bigger, or in general, how could we help spread out the word?
Well, an important part of Food for Life's mission is teaching this idea that food is a medium of love, and that food should be seen in that way, that it is the most powerful way to break down the barriers of communication that we have in this world. It is the most effective way to unite the world around a global dinner table, right? Where we all see each other as a global family, right? It is the most effective way to show that you love and respect someone, because food speaks all languages. If you look at any culture in the world, any culture, you'll see that every single one of those cultures is defined by three things: food, music, and dance. Those three things: food, music, and dance. The books, the scriptures, the philosophers, all these other aspects of what makes up a culture, they are not integral. They sort of explain, they sort of add value, or like a value add on to those three things. But those three pillars are what define that culture. So that's the same case with spirituality. A spiritual culture is based on those three things. So when we share food, which is prepared with a loving intention, it has the ability to connect with people on a spiritual level and bring people around a global dinner table. So our tagline, our mission statement is to create peace and prosperity in the world through the liberal distribution of plant-based meals prepared with loving intention. And we want to unite the world through pure food. So that's the most important thing. So in terms of like engaging the public, we really feel this is an important message that we want to convey, because we feel like that is a universal message, a really important message, particularly in these divided times, that people need to hear. That we're not so, yes, we're different in the sense that we have different skin colors and we have different ideas and this and that, but at an energetic, spiritual level, we're all connected, and we should focus on that. And food is the way to teach that. Food is the way to make that connection. So people can help us with promoting this idea of Food for Life, this uniting the world through pure food. I wrote a book called Food Yoga, which is on Amazon. And this explains, it's reversed now, but Food Yoga, you can see it on Amazon. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it lays out this case about the importance of food and connecting with food on a spiritual level. And then secondly, of course, people can donate. We are very cost effective. For every dollar donated, we can provide a freshly cooked meal to 2 children in need. So it's 50 cents a meal. So if you donate $10, 20 people in need will be provided a freshly cooked vegan meal.
Beautiful. I shall do that for sure, Paul. And I'm so great to meet you. And I'm really happy for people like you on this planet who are moving. And I hope that at some point, all of us merge together and bring more love and light and more compassion to the planet Earth. Thank you so much.
You're
And I
welcome.
hope to see you soon again. And we will do whatever we can to help you. Great mission, Paul. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you.
Have a
God
nice
bless.
day. Thank you.
God bless.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to end this live. So don't forget, guys, as you all heard, Paul's mission, if you guys are willing to donate, Paul, you know, you have to exit yourself. I cannot exit you.
I'll do that now. If they want to,
Okay.
our website is ffl.org. ffl.org.
ffl.org, and my assistant will surely pin that and add it up to our bio so they can also go there.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Have a blessed day, Paul. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. God bless.
Okay. All right, everyone. I am going to end this live. Thank you so much for being here. You see, we still have really good people on this planet Earth. So if you guys want to donate, as you all heard, Paul, for every dollar that you donate, a kid can be fed. So that would be great. I'm going to start myself and so on. So don't forget, guys, I'm just going to back up for a second and please listen to the beginning of this live because I kind of gave you guys the forecast, overall forecast for what's going on right now, energy of the earth plane right now. So be discriminating, meaning what? Discriminating, meaning that you are very careful who and what energy you're allowed. Oh, 50 cents a meal. Thank you so much for correcting me, Paul. 50 cents, one kid, $1, two people on the planet Earth. Okay. So discriminating, meaning that you are very aware of who and what energy are you allowing to come in your space. And it doesn't matter if it's close family member, it doesn't matter if it's your mom or whatever. So also be discriminating towards the informations that are coming towards you. Bad news, any news, I don't know. Don't get hyped up by gossip and what's going wrong here and all the stuff that are, you know what I mean. I don't even want to name it, but so many people are just getting so hyped up with negativity, negative news and all that. So be very discriminating what information is coming towards you. Hold on to your space, cleanse your space constantly. As we all know, first thing in the morning, when this eye when you realize that this eye has awakened, you need to separate yourself from this eye. Be aware, be the ego, be the hawks who's watching this character from up and above, and realize that you are not your mind, you are not the thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not even this body, okay? So high vibrational thought, best thoughts that gives you or creates the best feeling. Beautiful visions of a healthy, loving planet Earth. Bye, everyone. See you next Thursday. Bye bye. Blessing, much blessing, love, and